The US has a major drug problem. In the last couple of decades, tech developments in drug discovery have led some pharma companies to charge millions for their pharmaceuticals. Gene therapy drugs like Hemgenix and Lemmeldy, not sure if I'm pronouncing those right, were priced at $3.5 and $4.25 million. That's for a single one-time dose. And it got me thinking, what's AI going to do to drug prices? It's estimated that well over 1 million Americans struggle to afford literally life-saving medications, and yet pharma companies make billions in net income every single year. So I decided to dedicate a ridiculous amount of late night hours and weekend time to researching this. And in this video, we'll look at 3 questions. Why US consumers pay 2.78 times higher prices than comparable nations for the exact same medication, how AI is changing the US drug making process, and answer the question, will AI raise or lower the cost of drugs in the US? Let's dive in. In order for us to see if AI might raise or lower the prices of drugs in the US, we first need to understand how economics work for pharma companies that do business in the United States. The problem is, like most of healthcare, the industry is very hush-hush about how much money is made and how that money is even made. In the book American Sickness by Elizabeth Rosenthal, the author shares a story of a woman that she interviewed named Hope. Hope suffers from ulcerative colitis and has to take a pill called Asacol every single day. Asacol is a brand name drug, so the company that brought that pill to market has a patent on it. What's that mean? Basically, they have a US government allowed monopoly on the pill. Why is that even allowed? Well, the US government wants to incentivize pharma companies to take a risk and spend a lot of money to bring new pills to the market and new potential cures. If these companies do spend big money and create an approved new drug, they get rewarded with a monopoly. They can kind of charge whatever price they want. So this brand name pill manufacturer sells Asacol to Hope and other Americans for $750 a month. But Hope gets good news. That US patent that allows that drug manufacturer to charge that ridiculous price is about to run out. When that happens, a different drug company that makes generic drugs can begin selling a slightly altered version of Asacol at a much lower price, which just means Hope probably won't have to continue paying hundreds of dollars a month to treat her debilitating condition. But just before the patent runs out, the brand drug manufacturer of Asacol does something odd. They sell the rights to Asacol to a different drug company. This new drug company releases a brand new pill and they call it Asacol HD. Then they get a patent on it so that they can charge really high prices for this new drug. Now here's the bad part. They make the original drug that Hope takes, Asacol, disappear. It's completely gone. Hope can't get access to a pill that she's been using to treat her condition for years, and that means she has to upgrade to Asacol HD, meaning she needs to continue spending a ridiculous amount of money to treat her ulcerative colitis. But there's actually a problem with Asacol HD. There's a very thick coating on this new drug. The original Asacol didn't even have a coating. One guy who, like Hope, is dependent on this drug for his ulcerative colitis gets tired of the coating and decides to just try to remove it. He somehow finds a way to do it, and what does he discover inside? That old familiar Asacol pill just inside the coating. To make matters worse, why Hope and others who have this condition have to pay over $500 a month for Asacol HD, in the United Kingdom, patients with a private prescription pay $55 a month for a pill with the same primary ingredients as Asacol HD. But there's got to be some reason why these drug companies charge $750 for a pill, like the one that Hope takes, right? What would that mean for pills that cost $3 million? Well, pharma analysts often say it costs $2.6 billion to get a new drug to the market. However, more recent research shows that the median cost to make a brand new drug might actually be a lot less, like $985 million with a mean of $1.3 billion in 2018 dollars. Here's how those costs actually break down for pharma companies. First, there's the drug discovery and preclinical estimate, and that's about 42% of total costs. Second, there's clinical trials. Pharma companies have to get through 3 stages of clinical trials with humans, and those cost $28 million, $65 million, and $282 million on average. Then there's FDA approval, which is anywhere between $1 and $4 million, although that doesn't include all costs to get a drug approved, and marketing and advertising. This is where the numbers get ridiculous, and the US is actually one of only 2 countries in the entire world that allows advertising of pharmaceuticals. Advertising works really, really well for driving up drug costs. I don't want to completely derail this video, but people often perceive more expensive as better, and the same is true for pharmaceuticals, which means it's almost smarter for a pharmaceutical company to price their drug higher. Now, I probably should say it is no doubt very, very expensive to make drugs, but those that succeed see ridiculous money. Here's the net income for just a few from 2014. Now, here's the thing. People often expect that there be some correlation between how much it costs for a drug company to create and manufacture a drug and how much they charge US consumers. But studies like this one show that's not the case. In fact, this study looked at 60 drugs and found that there is zero correlation between research and development investment and the list prices for new drugs. Instead, drug companies charge what the market will bear, what insurance companies, consumers, and literally anybody else will pay for that drug. And they often price a drug based off the value that it gives to somebody's life. All this leads us to AI and drug making. If AI can reduce the cost that pharma companies have to invest to make or manufacture a drug, won't costs go down for the rest of us? Let's take a look at how a couple are using artificial intelligence to make and manufacture drugs today. Now, before we get into this, technically no AI first or AI discovered drug has actually reached the market yet. But as of back in April 2024, 31 AI first or AI discovered drugs were actually already in human clinical trials, some in phase 3. Companies are seeing a lot of progress, but it's not as simple as AI just generating some drug and then, they're off and running. Traditionally, drug creation and development is a painfully slow and expensive loop called the design, make, test, learn cycle. Here's how a non-chemist explains it. Chemists hand design a bunch of potential compounds, we're talking about dozens of them here, then they actually synthesize each one. They test them on cells or tissue, and then they cross their fingers hoping that something good happens. Then they tweak and repeat, again and again and again. And yes, this is the most scientific way I can explain it. But sometimes this process goes on for years. All in, it typically takes tens of millions of dollars and 4 to 6 years of research and development before a drug is ready for human clinical trials. In Silico, a drug discovery company designed entirely around artificial intelligence, did it in under 18 months. Then they hit phase 1 human clinical trials just 30 months after the project started, way ahead of that 5 to 6 year timeline. They used a full stack AI platform combining deep learning for target discovery, generative AI models for molecule design, and predictive analytics for trial success. The craziest part is their entire preclinical process only costs $2.6 million. I know that's a lot of money, but that's a fraction of what traditional pharma usually spends, often tens of millions, maybe even 100 million plus, just to reach the same point. Now, it should be said, Insilico isn't actually a pharma company, so they're not going to set the price. They sell or license their AI designed drugs to companies that do. But if it costs that much less to make a drug, then pharma could spend less hypothetically to acquire it. But we'll see. Their AI designed compound showed positive results in early human trials for a serious lung disease called IPF. And Insilico is just one of few. Exscientia used AI to design a new OCD drug in just 12 months. AI is starting to change how drugs are made, but so far it hasn't changed how much drugs cost, which raises the question, if AI changes everything for pharma, does it change anything for us? So the answer's got to be yes, right? If a drug is much cheaper to make, then it should be cheaper for us too, right? Well, yes, it should be. But remember that company I showed you earlier who got over $17 billion in net profits last year? This is what their CEO said at a congressional hearing.
If you bring a product to the market with a low list price in this system, you get punished financially and you get no uptake because everyone in the supply chain makes money as a result of a higher list price.
What does that mean? In the current system, pharmacy benefit managers, or maybe you've heard them as PBMs, often make more money when list prices for drugs are higher because they negotiate rebates based off those prices. So if a new drug is priced more affordably, everybody down the chain loses more money. AI will likely improve and speed up drug discovery, lowering costs, but it doesn't change the pharmaceutical industry's economic model. And it doesn't change the fact that PBMs, distributors, pharmacies, and pharma companies are all incentivized to make the cost of drugs higher. And unfortunately, for companies that offer their employees benefits, 60% of Americans are covered by plans offered by their work, will likely continue to see higher prices, at least in part by some of these high drug costs. I know there's a lot of nuance to that statement, but there has been something going on in the background that may lower drug prices, even if it's not related to artificial intelligence. In 2026, for the first time ever, Medicare will directly negotiate the price of prescription drugs. The first group will be 10 older, high-spending brand name drugs that don't yet face generic competition, with more added each year. Early estimates say that negotiations could cut prices by nearly half. Now, this only applies to Medicare, not employer health plans, but once Medicare sets a lower price, it often becomes a benchmark for private insurers too. So while AI may not change prices for people like Hope, maybe government negotiation could, because those prices are getting ridiculous. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing for more in the future. This is Tyler Dutchover. Thanks for watching.